Okay, welcome everybody. Once again, we meet on our regular hypnosis discussion group. Want to thank you guys for showing up. Anyone who's watching this on YouTube, there's a link to join. You can also reach out to me. I'll make sure you're part of the discussion. We can and join us. So every week we talk about things hypnosis related. And so I wanted to talk about what to do when you are working with speak your language. Um, I My language skills are very limited. I know a little of Esperanto, a little bit of Klingon, and I most recently been studying German, none of which are useful for hypnosis at this point in my skill set. Um, but I've had a couple of experiences where I was able to enlist a translator to sort of help me, and I just want to give some guidelines about how to do that. One of my experiences was when in I was in Italy. I was invited to do a weekend type of workshop there in Italy, and they provided with for me a translator. And if you've and I had never worked with a translator before, but what you find when you're doing a seminar and then offering a translation is the first thing you start to do it is there is a flow to it. You make a coherent sentence, not too long, and then you pause and you wait for the translation, and then it goes back and forth and back and forth. And it's an interesting process because you do develop this really strong rhythm with the translator. And there were moments, they were very brief and very seldom, where I rambled on way too much. Or in one incident, the translator had not gotten the rhythm yet. And in that case, she got sort of yelled at by the organizer, said, "You got to do better on your translation." And so what I did is I sat down and I hypnotized her. And we did this at lunch, and we created the rhythm. I would do the hypnosis, and her job was to repeat everything I said in Italian and follow the instructions. And that was just completely overwhelming for her conscious mind. And it was and she got in this rhythm and she had this strong emotional response. And from that point forward, everything worked wonderfully. The other experience I had was with a local client who called me because she had anxiety and a lot of um, as I remember, it was mostly just anxiety. It was emotional stuff. There were lots of triggers in her history, and she spoke Spanish, and we could communicate conversationally in English, but I did not feel comfortable her understanding my English sufficiently so it would have a good effect during the translation. And so I asked if she knew someone who could translate. And so she did have a dear friend who they were very close, which was wonderful, who uh, provided the translation. And uh, it provided me a whole bunch of experience to give guidance to anyone who does this. First of all, the rhythm I explained to the translator. If you've never done this before, we're just going to set up a rhythm. Your job is to translate it and follow me as well as we can. And and that happened very, very quickly. In the hypnosis session, this is the thing that I learned is that this the woman I was working with was a wonderful woman, and we got into some really deep senses of self-worth and self-esteem and start building this incredible sense of self-worth. And she started to cry during all of this. And because the translator I was using was such a dear friend, she started to cry too. And of course, I was a part of it too. And I'm not, I always keep a professional voice, but I've been in emotional hypnosis sessions where it got emotional for me too. Nonetheless, I was still very able to maintain uh, my responsibility as the hypnotist. And what I had noticed during the translation is because this was so emotional, my translator, her voice began to soften. And so while I spoke clearly and loudly, the translations got a little bit softer and then softer and softer. Nonetheless, got a great result, and we did it entirely in one session. And so there was no need to return. And so what the instruction that I would give from this point forward when you're working with a translator is first find out what the relationship that has with the translator. If it's a family member, that can be fine, but you also have to realize sometimes family members have their own ulterior motives with the person they're working with. And so if it has to do with a conflict or something like that, it's always best to choose someone else. Um, uh, Luckily, I've never gotten into that, and I've worked with people who I've known hypnotists who've taken on translators, and it's worked really, really well. Um, the other thing is to coach your translator because she's never done a hypnosis translation before. Is to coach your translator to speak clearly, to perhaps anticipate that this can get emotional, but your first and most important responsibility is deliver this in a clear tone. Do not get over emotional with it, even though it may be emotional, and to continue on. So that's typically how I do that when I'm working with people for translation. If anyone here has fluency in another language, all the better, because you have an entire market of people who you can hypnotize. Um, I the translator that I worked with, I said she did really well. If she ever really wanted to be a hypnotist, you have both an English and a Spanish speaking market uh, you can market to. So that's the basics of my experience with this. Um, First of all, screen your hypnosis subject to make sure that they understand what needs to take place. Screen the translator to make sure they don't have any ulterior motive toward the subject and that they're sincere. And just if they've never done translation before, just give them a session of coaching, reminding them first and foremost, there's going to be a rhythm, and just keep the rhythm, keep your voice clear and articulate. Don't soften it. Just make it so the hypnosis subject can continue to follow the instructions. But it's an incredibly useful tool if you live in a population that has people of multiple backgrounds to help them. And of course, in other cultures, smoking is sort of an expected thing. So it's a great tool if you're helping someone to stop smoking. And I would encourage anyone to reach out to find someone who is one interested in hypnosis, but also would like to translate as well. So that's the brief, and this is going to be a very brief one, but I think adding translation services to any service is going to be great. If you are new to hypnosis and you want to practice with someone who speaks another language, that's all the better. You will get extra skill at this. anyone here have any comments or questions? Yeah, Graham, you just unmuted yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've worked with interpreters while I was stationed in the Balkans, and we had sort of a set of rules for them. One being that we always had them like stood behind the right shoulder, and one of the things we were taught was speak to the person in English and let the translator do the rest of it. And one of the things that we often found was quite often they wouldn't match and match sort of like the emphasis on certain words. They just repeat it sort of like in a monotone. And I was just wondering how that might translate into a hypnotic sense. Because, say, for example, like, in your best hypnotic voice, you'd say, close your eyes. And if you're doing it with a French person, they might just go, ferme les yeux. And it just loses
Yeah,
all impact with the tonality and
it's a very good point. That emphasizes the importance of coaching. So even if you can take 15 to 20 minutes with your interpreter, and I would even have them say, uh, to what I did with that interpreter I worked with, which is, let me give you the words, and I want you to translate it and follow the instructions. So they actually get a subjective experience of what they're trying to create by their instructions. Um, I think it's a really exceptional tool to get someone deep in hypnosis because their plus or minus two bits of information are really being taken up by uh, hearing the words, translating it, saying it, and then following the instructions. So, and you might want to talk to your translator about the concept of embedded commands. Uh, so, it like in part of the boilerplate of my hypnosis uh, process is any sound or voice that you hear, whether it's inside or out, makes it easier and easier to follow my instructions and to focus only on my voice. And so you might want to coach them to see how they would translate that and if they understand the concept of embedded commands. So that would certainly help. When you were working with your translator, did you getting a good result even though they weren't perfectly coached?
well, I mean, the thing is because every time we'd rotate in and out on 6 monthly basis, and there were some translators that had been working for the British military for for a couple of years in the Balkans already. And quite often, they knew what you was going to be saying next because a lot of the chats they
Oh,
was having with the locals would always follow the same sort of thing. So, but a lot of people would totally mess it up because instead of asking the local chap directly, you know, how's things going on the farm, they turn to the
mhm.
translator and say, ask him how things are going on the farm.
Right, right.
So,
Um, yeah, that's a good point. If you're doing a hypnosis instruction and you're using a script or even part of a script, I'd recommend you have them look at it, read it. Again, it's going to depend entirely on how much time you have to sort of prepare your translator. But translators are good people, and they certainly care about what they're doing and the people they're working on. So you can always get a good result by just spending a little extra time with them to give them an idea of what to anticipate. All right.
yeah.
Anything else,
So,
Graham?
yeah, another one was obviously we've got things like Google Translate now.
Hmm.
And thought that occurred to us was if your understanding of how to pronounce is okay, like say for example German, but your vocabulary is not all that very good, then you can say, right, I'll put in like some like the comes to phrases and the phrase and all that sort of thing, and then just like read them off because you know how to pronounce them.
Hmm.
Yeah, because you've got to understand the pronunciation if you
Yeah,
can't find a translator, perhaps.
I have done that. I've put my hypnosis script line for line in Google Translate, so I could read it in German, and then I get some feedback from some of hypnotist I know who's a German native speaker. and he gives some good instructions. Yeah, but
How
yeah,
did that
this.
turn out when you did that, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I
Was it an
haven't
effective method of doing it, or?
it. I got a good transcript of it,
Hmm.
so it was very good, and you were able to create the rhythm of it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I haven't hypnotized anyone in German yet, but I'm working. We'll see how many. I don't have many native German speakers who aren't good at English here yet, so not where I'm at. All right, thank you, Graham. Yeah, Alex, did you have any question?
Yeah, at where I live, I mean, I live in Wales, so I've um, a natural fluency in Welsh. So an awful lot of the stuff that I do, um, an awful lot of the hypnotizing that I do tends to be in English with English clients. I've got people who live in Chester, which is just across the border. I could do this with people in Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham, but it's in Wales where I need to be able to balance my knowledge of Welsh with, well, basically with the ability to hypnotize people. So um, I found that for me, the key element is to keep the language as simple as possible without talking down to anyone for one thing, but to keep it simple, to strip away idiomatic elements. For example, like I could say someone is pulling my leg, but the Welsh language isn't Tunny Van Hoys.
Hmm.
I mean, that is the literal translation, but it doesn't mean the same.
Right.
It's the same thing if you're to translate from an English idiomatic phrase into any other language. So it's a matter of taking care when you're writing your script to try and find out what the proper idioms are. But unless you're familiar with those idioms, you're going to sound forced when you try them
Yeah.
out for the first time. Um, so this
Right.
is what it would work out for me. You'd be describing a process to a person, but you're trying to describe the process as close to literally as possible to describe what is happening to them. It does help to learn a few key phrases. So once in a while, I would probably say something in French like "On peut fermer les yeux maintenant, s'il vous plaît," and actually do it directly. Even if I
Yeah.
was talking to a translator, I'd be talking directly to the person because, for one thing, I doubt that they would expect it, and
Yeah.
that would be a good pattern interrupt.
Yeah. And the translator would still have to repeat the very same words, which is fine. It's like
Hmm.
double whammy.
Yes.
Yeah. 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 Keeping it simple, I think, is another phrase, another part of the coaching. If you're talking to a translator,
Hmm.
they understand English idioms. A scaredy cat in English is referred to as an angst rabbit in German, for example, Angsthase. So, but yeah, keeping it simple, I think, is the most important thing here. So, yeah, thank you very much. All right,
Thank you.
all
There's
right.
one reminder, you keep it simple because you're talking to your unconscious mind.
Again, I
So,
think that's really important to talk to if you're coaching your translator. You're talking
mm,
to a smart 10 or 12-year-old at the very most. 10 or
mhm.
12 years old. That's who we're speaking with. So keep it simple. Yeah, very
Yeah,
good.
thank
All
you.
right. All right. Evan, it's great to see you here. Do you have any questions? All right. All right. Good enough. Okay. If anyone has any interesting topics you'd like us to cover, we do this every week. Please send me some ideas and I'm happy to talk about it. We can get into some really weird and creepy stuff. We've done that already a couple times here. So, all right, guys, thank you for showing up. Keep up the great work. Do not give up. I want to thank you because you're here. You're not somewhere else. And so you'd sacrifice to be here. And it's really a blessing to have you here and talk. Thanks again.
And thank you for taking the time to arrange these sessions, David. It's really great that you do this for us all.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. All right.
Well,
Bye
have a
bye.
great weekend, everybody. Bye bye.